I framed my own brother for assault and destroyed his life, so I could steal his wife, his house, and his share of our family. Inheritance. 8 years later, the woman I used finally confessed and everything came crashing down. I have one sibling, my older brother Martin. He was the golden child from the minute he was born. Anytime someone needed something done, he was first pick. Anytime something went wrong, I was the easy one to blame. Our parents didn't hide it either. He was already being groomed to take over most of the family business by the time we were teenagers, and I was basically the extra kid they hoped would find his own thing eventually. He also got the girl I wanted. Her name is Delilah. Back then, she was everything to him. Smart, level-headed, funny in the subtle way that made you lean in just to hear. I had a crush on her the moment Martin brought her home the first time, even though I pretended that I didn't care. I used to tell myself it wasn't jealousy, just frustration, that he had everything handed to him, including someone like her. What people don't get is that Martin didn't actually appreciate her. He treated her like an accessory he'd earned by being the good son. He was always working, always outdoing everyone, always assuming she'd be waiting at home like some trophy. She'd vent sometimes when he wasn't around. Nothing dramatic, just the usual relationship stuff. But I paid attention. I remembered every small detail. Every complaint was like gold. Around that time, our parents finalized the inheritance structure for the business, and of course Martin got the majority. He wasn't even subtle about it. He kept talking about future plans, acting like he was already running everything. Meanwhile, I was stuck doing the same grunt tasks and pretending I wasn't bitter. Then one evening, Delilah was upset after some argument they had. I only caught pieces of it, but she said something like she felt invisible. I don't know what clicked in my head, but I realized she needed someone steady and Martin wasn't that guy. And if she wasn't going to leave on her own, she'd need a push. That's where everything basically spiraled. People will call it manipulation, fine, but I call it seeing an opportunity. I started being around Delilah more, helping with little stuff, listening when she talked, making her feel like someone noticed her. I never crossed any lines physically or anything, but I knew exactly what I was doing. It didn't feel wrong at the time. It felt like things were finally shifting to where they should have been. But she still wouldn't leave him, and Martin wasn't slipping fast enough. He'd have bad days, sure, but he always bounced back. He had this infuriating habit of fixing problems before they got worse. So I made sure one problem got worse. I twisted a story about him coming home drunk and being aggressive. Nothing insane, just something that sounded believable enough for someone already upset with him. I told her she might have blocked it out because she was stressed. I planted enough doubt that she hesitated when anyone asked what really happened. And look, I didn't make her say anything she didn't want to say. I just nudged things so the picture got blurry. One night, I called the police after making sure Martin would come home late. I don't know if Delilah believed it fully or not. She froze when they questioned her, didn't deny it fast enough, and that was enough. He wasn't charged or anything, but the damage was instantly there. Our parents panicked. They believed the worst. They told him to leave the house for a while. He did, mostly because he didn't want to make Delilah uncomfortable. Once he was gone, it all snowballed. I stepped in more, became the support system, and she leaned on me harder. It wasn't overnight, but eventually she was closer to me than him. My parents thought Martin needed space, therapy, time off work. I didn't disagree. I didn't exactly talk them out of it either. I let them reach their own conclusions. Fast forward, and he basically got pushed out of the business. I bought the house when he needed money. Delilah and I got together, and life kept moving. I didn't feel guilty then. I felt like I'd won. Delilah's been acting weird. She started some therapy thing, found religion or spirituality or whatever, and suddenly she's talking about truth and consequences and how she can't live with the past. She keeps saying she wants to make things right, which sounds a lot like confessing. She says she's tired of carrying guilt around. I keep telling her we've built a life and there's no reason to dig up old graves, but she's getting distant, and that scares me more than I want to admit. So now I'm here. I don't feel guilty the way people want me to feel guilty. I don't regret the choices that got me here, but I don't want my entire life blowing up because Delilah suddenly wants to heal. I don't think Martin needs to be dragged back into anything. He's living his life somewhere else. He's fine. Update 1. The night after my original post, Delilah sat me down in the living room like she was about to tell me someone died. She looked pale and kept rubbing her hands together. I figured she was finally ready to apologize for being dramatic. Instead, she told me she couldn't keep living like this anymore. I didn't even understand what she meant at first. I assumed she wanted a break from work or needed a vacation. No, she meant us. She said she'd been sick over the truth for years and that she needed to make things right. That wording irritated me because it wasn't her burden to carry. She didn't do anything. I built the entire structure that saved her from the mess she was in with Martin, but she talks like she's the mastermind. Then she told me something that honestly shocked me more than the confession part. She admitted she never actually loved me. She said she tried to make herself believe she cared because I was the only stable thing left after everything happened with Martin. Basically, I was her emotional crutch. I put years into our marriage and she reduces it to charity? I didn't even hide my reaction. I told her flat out that she wouldn't have survived those first 2 years without me keeping everything together. She didn't deny it, but she didn't seem grateful about it either. She just kept repeating that she had to tell Martin the truth because she owed it to him. I shut that down immediately. I told her she wasn't contacting him, texting him, calling him, sending smoke signals, nothing. I said it calmly but firm. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. Then she said if I tried to control her again, she'd just walk out and go straight to him. I didn't even know she had that tone of voice in her. She never raised her voice to me once in 8 years, so that caught me off guard. After she went to the bedroom, I did something petty. I checked her phone. She normally leaves it on the charger in the kitchen, but it wasn't there. That instantly made my stomach twist because she never takes it with her at night. I ended up checking the trash bin on the mail app like some idiot and found a draft of an email to Martin that she had deleted. It wasn't even a long message, but it was enough to make me furious. It was all this melodramatic guilt and "I'm sorry for the pain I helped cause" nonsense. She even wrote that she missed the person she was before everything happened. Translation: she wants Martin back. I won't pretend that part didn't hit hard. I didn't sleep. I waited until she went to work the next morning and checked the mailbox. There was a letter addressed to Martin in her handwriting. She must have mailed it earlier in the week. I opened it. I didn't even feel bad. It said everything she had been too scared to tell me. She felt trapped. She hated the house now. She hated the life we built. She felt guilty every single day. She never wanted to marry me. She just didn't know what else to do. There was one part where she wrote that Martin deserved the truth so he can heal properly. I actually laughed out loud because, as far as I knew, Martin had no life left to heal. Turns out I was wrong about that too. Later that afternoon, her sister called me. She's never liked me, so she didn't bother with small talk. She said Delilah was staying with her for a few days because she needed space. She tossed in this unnecessary line about how Delilah should have left a long time ago. I ended the call before I said something I'd regret. Then I noticed Delilah took more than just a few clothes. She grabbed her passport, the wedding ring I bought her years ago, and the key to this small storage unit she's had forever. She never mentioned she was taking any of that. She didn't even leave a note. My parents found out later that evening because her sister stupidly told my mother. They showed up acting like concerned saints. My dad actually asked me if I had messed up like Martin did. I got irritated and snapped back that Delilah was being dramatic and making everything worse. I don't know why I said it the way I did, but the look on my mom's face told me I said too much. They didn't accuse me of anything directly, but they kept exchanging these weird looks. It was the first time I felt like I wasn't steering the ship. I'm not admitting anything to them. I'm not admitting anything to Delilah. As far as I'm concerned, she's overreacting and dragging things out because she thinks guilt makes her morally superior now. Update 2. A few days after my last update, Delilah's sister called again. She didn't hide the satisfaction in her voice when she told me Martin reached out to Delilah and asked if they could meet to talk. She made sure to mention that Delilah cried when she saw his message, like that was supposed to make me feel something. I already knew she was spiraling, but I didn't think she'd actually go crawling back to him. I asked her sister when and where they planned to meet, and she didn't give details on purpose, but I've known that family long enough to piece things together. They're predictable. I showed up at the place I figured they'd choose, some coffee shop near Delilah's old job. I got there early. I didn't want her walking into something and turning it into another episode, and I also wanted to be the one controlling what was said. 7, 8 years, and Martin still walks around like he's the injured party with a halo he didn't earn. I wasn't going to let him rewrite anything. He arrived alone, earlier than I expected. He didn't look wrecked or angry. He just looked steady, like someone who had been waiting for this moment and rehearsed it. That irritated me immediately. He didn't ask where Delilah was. He just stared at me, like he already knew why I was there, and said enough without actually saying anything. I won't go into details because I'm not typing out every back and forth, but the whole thing felt off from the start. He kept implying things I didn't admit to, and acting like he had some upper hand. What threw me off wasn't the accusations. It was the fact that he wasn't yelling or flustered. He was calm. That's not how he used to be. I denied everything like I always did, but he didn't budge. He said he had been collecting pieces here and there over the years. Apparently, therapy gave him the idea to look back on old records and check for inconsistencies. I thought he'd moved on. I assumed he didn't care enough to dig. Turns out he did, and he found more than I thought was still around. He brought up stuff I didn't even remember doing. Calendar changes in the family business system. Deleted messages I sent from Delilah's phone years ago. He mentioned some old voice note Delilah recorded during a therapy session back then. I didn't even know she had that. I honestly thought she was too scared to document anything. She always avoided paper trails. I kept telling him he was reading too much into coincidences and twisting things. He didn't respond the way I expected. He just kept saying he knew the truth and he didn't need my version anymore. Then Delilah walked in. She looked worn out but focused, which was strange for her. She usually falls apart when things get tense. This time she didn't even look at me first. She sat next to Martin, not close enough to imply anything romantic, but close enough to show a line had been drawn. She said she had things to say. I don't know why, but she didn't hesitate. She confirmed everything Martin laid out, every twist, every detail, every manipulation. I tried stopping her by saying she was remembering things wrong or that she wasn't stable, but that didn't land. She didn't even flinch when I said it. She told Martin she wasn't expecting forgiveness. She just wanted him to know what actually happened back then. Then Martin dropped the real bomb. He said he already talked to our parents earlier that afternoon. They apparently listened, asked for the evidence he had, and told him they would handle things. According to him, they wanted me to step back from the business immediately. They were also considering legal action because certain financial inconsistencies he pointed out lined up with things they had been suspicious about, but never confronted me over. I told him he was being ridiculous and dramatic. I said they were overreacting and letting Delilah's guilt bleed into everything. I left before either of them tried saying anything else. I didn't want to sit there and listen to Martin act like he was some hero and Delilah act like she had a spine she never used before. I was angry, but mostly I felt like everyone suddenly forgot the last years. They forgot who kept the family business going, who held everything steady, who Delilah relied on every single day. Now everyone's acting like they had clarity all along, and I'm the only one who misremembered things. It's absurd. Update 3. The first hit came when a lawyer's letter showed up at my door early in the morning. Delilah filed for divorce. Not just a regular filing either. She included a very long statement about manipulation, years of guilt, emotional pressure, and whatever else she could stretch into the document. She didn't hold anything back. I didn't bother reading every line. It was pages of her rewriting history from her preferred angle. But there were enough accusations in there to make everything annoying. She turns our entire marriage into some charity project she trapped herself in. Typical. On top of that, the divorce filing triggered a review of several joint accounts and assets. Things I was sure were stable suddenly weren't. I checked my access to the business accounts, and half the logins either didn't work or said temporarily restricted. At first I thought it was some system error. It wasn't. My parents had officially frozen anything linked to me. They didn't even bother calling to explain. They had the lawyer handle everything. I tried reaching them, and both of them let the calls go to voicemail. Then came the part I'm still trying to wrap my head around. The storage unit. I knew Delilah took the key when she left, and I figured it was just clothes or old keepsakes. But after everything that's been thrown at me, I wanted to see what she thought was important enough to lock away from me. I won't pretend it was the smartest decision, but I didn't care anymore. I went there late at night and used the spare access code I still had from when we moved in. She changed the lock, but not the entry code, which shows how sloppy she really is. Inside, it looked like she'd been collecting things for years. Not valuables, not sentimental items, evidence. She had journals filled with dates, events, notes about things she felt pressured into. She kept printouts of documents I completely forgot existed, including old drafts from the business office ones I assumed had been deleted off the system. Some had my handwriting from when I was helping reorganize accounting logs years ago. She even had recordings from therapy sessions. Apparently, her therapist told her to document things back then. I didn't know she actually listened. The worst part was a folder with copies of old paperwork with Martin's signature, except they weren't his signature. I know my handwriting well enough. She kept those too. She labeled everything by year, like some investigator building a case slowly over time. She even had a draft of a letter addressed to my parents, explaining everything she did and everything I did. She never sent it. She must have rewritten it dozens of times because there were half-finished versions shoved into the sides of the box. I didn't stay long. The whole place made me feel like I'd been living with someone who wasn't as weak as I thought she was. She had been planning her exit, her confession, whatever this is, slowly and quietly. For years. I left everything exactly how I found it because touching anything felt wrong in a way I can't even explain. I walked out and sat in the car for almost an hour, trying to make sense of why she saved so much. It wasn't to protect me, it wasn't to help herself. It felt more like she wanted proof ready for the day she couldn't keep going. The last couple days have been a blur. I've been drinking more than I should, and I'm not pretending otherwise. I'm not trying to get sympathy. I'm just exhausted. I always told myself I wanted Delilah, but now I don't know if I wanted her or if I just wanted to prove I could take something from Martin and hold on to it longer than he could. Final update. I'm out of the family business. That part wasn't a long, dramatic battle like I thought it would be. My parents had already started the paperwork before they even spoke to me. They sent me this long email with phrases like not acting in the best interest of the company and breach of trust, and I didn't even fight it because there was nothing to fight with. They had documents, timelines, even Delilah's written statement. I got dragged into one meeting where they told me they'd give me a chance to transition out cleanly so it wouldn't blow up legally. They said it in the same tone you use when you talk to a stranger who's crying in public, polite but done with you. Then came the inheritance. I always thought they'd never touch that. Our parents used to talk about legacy like it was some unbreakable chain, and both of us were links. But now that whole idea is gone. Martin gets the house. Not my house. The house I made sure he lost the first time around. It's going back to him legally. They said it was the fairest corrective action. I didn't even argue. I didn't have the energy. The rest of the inheritance is being recalculated, which is a nice way of saying I'm getting nothing, because there's nothing to argue on my side, except I had it first because I cheated better. The divorce is basically done too. Delilah left the house before the papers were even filed. She didn't come back, not even to grab the thing she left behind in the bathroom cabinet. She sent a short message through her lawyer about wishing me well and hoping I use this to start over. It felt weirdly calm, like she was already on the other side of all this, while I'm still stuck replaying everything. Her therapist, her family, all her paperwork, she lined up every detail over the years in case she ever needed to walk away fast. I didn't even realize she had been preparing for an exit. That part hurt in a way I don't like admitting. I used to think she depended on me. Turns out she was quietly planning how to detach from me without losing her mind. My parents told me they're taking space. They didn't say no contact forever, just for now. They didn't yell. They didn't cry. They looked tired. My father couldn't even make eye contact. My mom said she hopes I get help and that maybe one day we'll talk like family again. I know people think that kind of line is comforting, but it felt more like being pushed out the front door of a house that used to be mine. Martin sent a letter too, not long, just enough to make sure I understood this is the end of whatever we were. He wrote that he doesn't want anything from me, no apology, no explanation, no attempt at fixing anything. He said he's rebuilding his life, and this time he doesn't want me anywhere near it. I read it twice and felt this weird emptiness. I used to tell myself I hated him, but apparently I needed him around to compete with. Without him, everything feels flat. It's like the soundtrack cut out. The house has to be liquidated for the divorce settlement, so I'm living in a small apartment near the edge of town. Cheap place, thin walls, not much to say about it. I don't bring people over. I spend most days trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do next because everything in my life used to orbit around winning, and now I'm not even in the game. My uncle reached out saying I should talk to someone professionally before I spiral. I told him I'm fine, even though I know I'm not. I don't feel guilt in the dramatic movie sense of the word. It's more like standing in an empty room where all the furniture got dragged out and realizing I don't even remember why I wanted the room in the first place. Martin's doing well from what I hear. Good job, good apartment, stable life. Delilah moved out of state with her sister and hasn't contacted me again. My parents are focused on supporting Martin. Extended family won't look me in the eye when I run into them. I guess I earned